The Louvre. That happened. And in case you're living under the rock and don't know what happened, the Louvre, that's perhaps one of the most celebrated museums in the world in France. So a few weeks ago, maybe over a month now, about a month ago, some dudes walked in, stole some really expensive stuff in broad daylight.
They didn't really walk in. They came in through the ceiling.
Mm.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, but if you could do that in broad daylight, to me, it was kind of like they walked in, took some cool stuff, and swoop disappeared into the sunlight.
And if my sources are correct, I heard they rode away on scooters. They got away on scooters.
Yeah, and I was saying, it was like I don't know if you've watched Lupin. Lupin is a French, just like a heist series. It was on Netflix by Omar Sy, the French actor Omar Sy, and it was about this guy who's a thief, and he knows how to go undercover. He knows how to escape situations and everything. He's like an escape artist and all that.
Yes.
And I'm like, what if these guys were inspired by Lupin, which is a French movie about a guy who steals from, whatever. And all
That's
that.
very possible. Or they could have been inspired by a movie, Money Heist, rather.
Money Heist,
Yeah.
or them Ocean 11 and all those kind of things.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, but everybody, like recently, they were saying that there's this lady in the French Jewelry Award or something that she came out and was saying that heist was perhaps one of the greatest tragedy in France. And I wonder why people were so, not that I approve of stealing or anything, but I don't think I was as, sad or felt beat as others felt. Oh man, what a tragedy that happened to the Louvre and everything. What about you? Did
Yeah,
you really
me too. I was kind of excited.
about stealing?
Not really about stealing, about the thought of it. Like, how did they even plan that? And they were successful.
Yeah.
That's the very most. That's the very shocking thing. They were successful.
Yeah. They said they've caught some
Suspects, right?
suspects right now, but yeah, but it is daring.
Yeah, but the last time I saw the news about them, there were I think about 4 of them were released. They said they were petty thieves.
Oh, so they were not related to the Louvre.
Totally unrelated.
So that means the real guys are still out at large.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I wonder how many real Africans felt, moved by it. Now, the reason I'm saying this is when that happened, I was thinking, and when I heard this lady said that it was the greatest tragedy that happened in France, and I'm like, oh, really? And to think that many of the things that are in some of those European museums are actually stolen from other cultures. Now, so you recognize that it was a tragedy to your people, to your identity. But the things that you display in there that are taken from other people's culture, it didn't cross your mind to think that that was a tragedy to their people. Take the Benin masks. There was this book I was reading. I think it's somewhere there. And it talks about the fortunes of Africa.
Okay.
It's by Martin Meredith. Now, it chronicles like 5,000 years of consistent exploitation, looting, if you will, of Africa's goods, of Africa's resources and everything. And it even culminated into the looting, the pillaging, and the extraction of African bodies. But talking about some of these masks and everything, the Benin mask, the Ife mask, when I went to the museum in Cincinnati and I saw some Sierra Leonean Minde masks and everything and all that, and I wonder how many of them were acquired ethically, like we have with the Benin masks. But yeah, it's then I was thinking, so perhaps this is sort of like the chickens coming home to roost. That hey, excuse me, Louvre guys, French guys, or the European museums and everything. What if this was sort of like a glimpse into what has been happening to African societies, not just African societies, by the way, Asian societies, wherever they went and looted people's culture, people's sort of spiritual identity, people sense of identity, and they looked at these things and carted with it.
Well, I just think the Louvre Heist mirrors what those European countries have been doing to Africa. You know, it lasted about 8 minutes thereabout, and they what was it called? The greatest heist the world forgot, if I can term it that way, which is still ongoing. Lasted about 8 decades, right? And then precious jewels were taken away, national treasures, but they symbolized people's identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I see some of those things as evidence. You know, things that were taken from African societies. These were evidence. I mean evidence in the sense that you look at some of the sculptures in the Benin Empire. Some of them chronicle the things that kings achieved. They were chronicling the achievement of their kings, of bodies of war, and you took them. It's sort of like leaving a gap, sort of like you remove that library, that history from them, and you felt it is good for you to put it in your museums, in those glass walls, and appease your own visitors and appease your own public. But the importance to those people is of no significance, because we have always, I think what I was saying the other day, that the greatest victory of propaganda is that it was successful in letting us think that some lives, some cultures are more important than others.
Yeah, you know what even saddens me the most about this whole thing is the fact that 90% of Africa's culture, of Africa's heritage, is outside of the continent.
Yeah.
So a good number of us do not really know about our culture, about our tribes, about our heritage, because 90% of it is outside the continent. And these people are not even trying to return these looted items, because in 2022, when Germany tried to return some of it, the Africans asked, the Great Britain, they asked France to return some of these things. And you know what they told us? They said we should go and make better museums. So now the question is, where did you take it from?
Yeah, what museums did you take them from?
Exactly. And what makes you think that we don't know what to do with them?
Oh, yeah, we don't know where to put them. Where were they before you looted them?
Exactly. That's one. Two, the British said it is deaccessioning of items was the term they used.
Yeah, deaccession.
Yeah, deaccessioning of items is against their law.
Yeah, so in other words, you don't have the right or something to remove certain things from a particular place to take them somewhere and all that, which is weird, because so they always find ways. Like I tell people that instead of saying something is bribery, they said it's lobbying. So now instead of returning something that you stole, you are beginning to look for new terms to dance your way around it and say, oh, it's deaccessioning. There's a law against deaccessioning of stuff and all that.
You know, another thing again is, this is what Africans were told when they asked for their stuff back. But then in less than an hour or two, when the Louvre heist happened, international calls were being made. Interpol was there working, and whatever teams they were. They called for museums, national museums, to shut down.
Yeah.
Because of this. But then the Europeans, Britain, France, and Germany, and some other places are having our treasures on display. And nobody is calling them and telling them to return, send these things back to where they're coming from.
Why? But the point is, why would they? And because, again, people go to these places to see some of these treasures, as we would call them. People go to see these artifacts, and they are big businesses.
Exactly.
And if they return, for example, someone was saying that if you return everything that was stolen from the British Museum, that it will probably be, they will have to be displaying chicken and fish and chips and maybe beans on toast. But yeah, it's just saying that many of the things that grace these halls are things that were taken or stolen from other parts. So if they return them, then they have nothing to show. Yeah, so I understand why they'll be skeptical to return these things, or why they would dance around the possibility of returning some of these things, and because it doesn't help their bottom line. But I think that's where I feel it's been well, like what I was saying in this book, The Fortunes of Africa, it has always been so. For 5,000 years plus, we have been put in a position where we think that we ought to serve the good of these people first, then we can consider ours.
You know, it's still happening today, especially with the Nigerian government.
It's not just now. Yeah, you talk about not just the Nigerian government. I look at what is happening, for example, in Congo. I look at what is happening in Sudan. That Africa is always there for the plunder. It's always there to be exploited. It's never there to serve the good of the Africans themselves. And one thing that really gets to me is when Africans themselves, because I have statements like, "Oh well, things were better when we're under the colonial powers and everything," and the quality of ignorance is astounding. To not understand the systems that were at play. And that is another victory of cultural imperialism, that they were stealing your stuff. I remember when you watch some of these movies, like all the not that I didn't like them, like the Indiana Jones and stuff, or King Solomon's Mines and all that. You would see Chuck Norris and all these guys when they were going to a particular place, and they would paint the locals, the indigenes, as savages. Then they will paint the guy, the loot, the thief who comes into the society. They'll paint him as the hero. And we were there applauding for the hero when he was busy killing the locals who were trying to preserve their culture, their sense of identity. It was when I grew up and I went to college and I started studying things like culture and communication, cultural imperialism, that I realized that, man, they did us a number.
Yeah, you know, you also pointed out Black Panther, Killmonger.
Yeah. Now see, let's not even go to that. I remember watching something that Dr. Omar Johnson was saying something about that. Now, but yeah, you see that there is always a subtle way that in Black Panther, who happened to be the hero,
A white CIA agent.
what is the likelihood? You know, and I remember, I think 2 or 3 years ago, I did, there was a YouTube video I made, and I was like, look, African history does not, or African glory should not be tethered only to fiction. Because for many people, Black Panther was the first time that an African became the savior to something great. You know, that was the first time they saw sort of like glory in an African leader. That is the first time they saw something that is worth emulating. And I'm like, you didn't have to wait for fiction to see great African leaders. You didn't have to wait for fiction to see people who were achieving greatness.
And there's speculation that this Black Panther thing was stolen from
a Nigerian writer.
Yeah.
And was he not the one that said he wasn't bothered and everything? And that's another thing that pisses me off, because I am hoping for somebody to steal any of my story. I will not have the power, maybe the financial backing to prosecute, but I will flog that issue. I will be posting 3 times a day on all social media platforms, telling them that this is how they continue to steal stuff. Now,
yeah, do you know he even went into the music industry? Mark Anthony, he used this Oliver Twist.
Yeah.
He used that beat without informing D'banj. And when D'banj was asked if he was going to press charges, he said no, that he was actually proud that Mark Anthony could. And I'm like, if the roles were reversed, if tables were turned, guy.
I mean, look at YouTube. You will play a snippet of somebody's somebody's music, just a snippet. Maybe you want to explain something. You will see their strikes against you and all that. And you see, that's another thing. For me, that's part of the challenges we have is we do not understand self-preservation as much as they do. And recently, I've been posting videos. For those who don't know why I started posting videos as consistently as I do now, here's the reason. Recently, some stuff happened around the world. And some very influential guys were saying that before the Europeans came to Africa, they didn't have anything. They didn't even have a story building and everything. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That was when I started talking about places like Napta Playa, the Senegambia stone circles. I haven't talked about Ladibela. I haven't talked about the Adams calendar. I haven't talked about even the pyramid in Igbo land. There are many things I haven't talked about, but it was the fact that this guy said that before the colonialists, before the slave boats landed in Africa, that there was not one, what do they call it? Story building or stuff that Africa had nothing. They think that we're living on trees and stuff. And I'm like, empires had come and gone before the slave boats came in. So that was what pushed me to put in some of these things.
You know, these people, they just make up whatever kind of story. They just cook up stuff that suits their heroism according to how they put it, I guess. You know, that's how they said Columbus discovered America with people in it.
Yeah, so you discover a place where people already live. No, but it's the same thing. Mongo Park discovered the Niger now.
Please make it make sense.
Yeah, and meanwhile, have they heard of the Gala Empire?
I doubt. How about the Nupi?
Yeah, see, when I mean empires that started before, somewhere in BCEs and all that. But you see, but here's the thing. This is what people don't understand. We're going back to the whole idea of how we actually don't vociferously push our own stuff is because we don't understand that sense, that self-preservation. We don't understand the power of propaganda. What media empire do we own? Many of us watch Squid Game. Many of us watch some of these. I remember my first foray into K-drama was Extraordinary Attorney Woo. Now, it was because I had some discussions, with people who were in this field of developmental disability and everything. I watched this series and I was captivated. But you see, there was something else. The next one I watched was sort of like a period series that talks about their history and everything. I really love history, facts and all that. And within their pop culture, within their film industry, their movie industry, what do they infuse in it? Their culture, their history, their belief systems, their religion, their diet, their dressing, everything about their life. It is now spreading across the entire globe.
You know what I like about those people is that, even though they were also colonized, at least some parts of Asia was colonized, the fact that they were able to keep their culture, most of them did not even learn English. We watch online how that 7 o'clock boy.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so it's that is it for me. But you come over here and let's say I'm speaking English and I'm not very fluent in English and I make a mistake and immediately I'm corrected. Like,
oh boy.
Hello, that is not my first language. Let me speak it the way I know how to speak it. That is one. Two, which white man will come and speak in Hausa fluently or try as much as I speak English?
Now, Hausa is not your tribe.
No, it is not my tribe.
Yes, and you speak Hausa. You speak
Bagi.
Bagi is your tribe.
Yes.
Now, so someone would say, but you see, that's the thing. That's what I'm talking about. Cultural imperialism is the idea that if I speak for example, when I speak, people hardly trace what part of West Africa I come from because I have sort of like a flat accent. The point is, the closer you are to speaking like guys out there, whether it's England or America, the more you are seen as educated, which I think is the dumbest thing that we believed. I was looking at other writing systems that developed in Africa. For example, people don't even know that the Nubians actually developed a form of script that till this day, they have not been able to decipher them. And we have, there are other types of writing. Of course, Gaius came a bit, Giz or whatever came a bit later. Then you have Nsibidi that was done in Nigeria. And some of those things are beginning to be deciphered and all that. But, so would you say they were illiterate when they were already doing some form of writing and they understood it?
Mm-hmm.
So, but again, that's the power of propaganda, and that's the power of cultural imperialism, because you present yours as the ideal, as the standard, then every other thing is considered fringe and has to measure up. We now circle back to Louvre. All of this to me is sort of like a comedy sketch that, hey, hold on a minute. We are just giving you a glimpse of what you have been doing for 5,000 years. We don't glory in stealing. But what we are saying is, if it is a tragedy for France that a few pieces were stolen, how many? Just a few.
Eight.
Just 8. What about the millions of artifacts that you have taken from places around the globe?
In the British Museum alone, they have over 700 Benin artifacts. That's just
From one tribe.
from one tribe. That's just one tribe. And in a situation whereby 90% of a continent's cultural heritage is outside the continent.
Yeah. But then you tell these people that they didn't have culture. Someone said that the reason that why are the pyramids in Egypt? Because they couldn't fit in the British Museum. Now, but we laugh about these things. But the underlying essence for me is people's identity were stolen. And the artifacts don't just represent physical things. They represent deeper existential things for people. And when you consistently pillage from people, you are sort of eroding the sense of identity. And now when people are even trying to talk about it, you say, oh, that was how many years ago? That was how many years ago? Now, as someone who was born in Sierra Leone, I've given it away now. As someone who was born in Sierra Leone, I remember coming across a documentary where somebody found out somebody was singing in the United States, was singing a particular song. And later they traced that song to a village in Mende land. So Mende is one of the tribes in Sierra Leone. This was sung by a descendant of slaves in the United States. And it was recorded.
Yeah.
And years later, they traced that song to Sierra Leone.
Yeah,
they were still singing it.
You know, at that time, the where did you say it was traced from again?
Where it was Mendeland.
Mandela, no,
It was straight from the US.
US. Yeah, you know, around that time they said it was wrong English. That that's what they said, that the person was singing in.
Yes, it was singing
English.
on one kind of whatever language, not knowing it was a dialect of Mende. And so why I brought that up is that it becomes evident that it is not a fantasy that people were extracted from their families, that people were extracted from their land. It is no longer something that you feel we cannot relate with because we can see physical evidence of it. Recently, there was I think was it the 10th president of the United States? His grandson or one of his grandsons just died. Listen, the 10th president of the United States. Now they have 47. Number 47 is the guy here there now. So that tells you that slavery was not long ago. That tells you that Jim Crow was not long ago. That tells you that colonization was just yesterday. Because many of our parents were alive when many African countries had their independence. So the exploitation was not long ago. And the exploitation is still going on. That we call neo-colonization. And we are seeing these things happening in places like Sudan and in the Congo. Just to name a few. This is a family, what do they call it now? Family tree.
Family tree.
Yeah. A genealogy. And the interesting thing is that this was started, the history of this particular branch of the family dates back to the abolition of slave trade in 1807. So, this is tracing it from 1807. But we all know that none of us started with slavery. None of us started with slavery. So, to begin a people's history with slavery, it's frankly diabolical and devilish. Well, to wrap it up, I think the idea is we now hope that the people in France would begin to realize that the chickens are probably coming home to roost. What do they call that thing? Is it karma?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that won't be like karma because it was just 8 pieces, like I said. Now imagine some alien race came and took and, like, say for example, move the Eiffel Tower and took it out of there and some other cool stuff that they had and everything. Then we would say that's karma. But now it's just some few pieces that somebody stole. I mean, it's just what, 100 and something million or 88 million. That's not much.
Yeah, $100 million.
Yeah, what is that? That's nothing. That's chicken change for people like Elon Musk. So what are they beating themselves about? It's nothing. So please, if you think that's a tragedy, imagine what you have done to to other races, to other societies around the world. And that's it.
Right.